What are your thoughts, Jordan, about the two wars still raging, Ukraine and Russia, and of course Israel and its war in Gaza against Hamas?
Well, I think Ukraine is great news for the arms manufacturers and the military-industrial complex, and I think that's really 90% of the issue right there. I mean, it's been in their interest, and I say this without cynicism, by the way. It's been in their interest since the demise of the Cold War to insist upon the positioning of Russia as the dire enemy of the West. I mean, first of all, if you're a military supplier, it's your job to be paranoid and to look for enemies. And there's some utility in that, right? I mean, that's part of being wise as serpents, let's say. But it also means that there's constant pressure from extremely well-heeled individuals, those that run the military-industrial complex, to damn all potential peace accords with faint praise and to constantly agitate on the side of war and preparation thereof. And the war in Ukraine is a bonanza for the military-industrial complex, and that's a complete bloody catastrophe. We had a chance, especially in the 90s and in the 2000s for that matter, to make a long-standing peace with Russia. Not an easy thing to do, especially in the face of China. And we burned up that opportunity like the fools that we are. And here we are with that. With regards to Israel and Hamas, well, a war occurs when people can't agree, and we certainly can't agree on the facts of the matter at hand with regard to the conflict in Israel. My sense is, most fundamentally, that it's been hyper-convenient for the radical Islamists, especially those in Iran, to have Hamas and the Palestinians suffer greatly and continually so that they can be a constant goad in the side of Israel and the US. And so we've stepped right into that as well. What's the solution? Well, I'd be a fool to offer one, wouldn't I? Because there's been a plethora of solutions offered with regards to Israel and the Palestinians over the last 6 decades, and very little progress has been made on that front. And I think the reason for that is that there are incredibly entrenched interests in whose interest it is to prolong and make as bloody as possible this conflict. And so there's no hope for peace under those circumstances. And for the Islamic fundamentalists, so-called Islamic fundamentalists who are fostering the conflict, what's a few 100,000 or million Palestinian lives? Doesn't hurt them if all those innocent people die. So that's a dreadful situation. If I was in Israel's shoes, I suppose I would likely do much the same as they are doing, with one possible coda, which is that as Israel becomes more successful on the military front, which is highly likely, the swing in popular opinion is likely to increasingly go against them, because it's a lot easier to trumpet moral virtue by siding with the hypothetical victims than it is to celebrate the accomplishment of the conquerors. And so I'm afraid that one likely outcome for Israel is that they win militarily but lose strategically. However, we'll see. One of the things I'm very happy about, however, and this is really a miracle, and it's one that we should be very attentive to, is that despite the rising temperature and costs of this conflict, the Abraham Accords, which established a certain degree of peace between Israel and a number of states who were previously in a state of enmity, that accord has held. And that's the best news on the geopolitical front that I can think of in the last 50 years. There is some real possibility still that Israel and its neighbors could enter into a long-standing and productive peace. And God, we could all pray for that, because that would be the best possible outcome for everyone involved. I'm certain that Iran does not believe that that pathway is in their interest. And so they're going to do everything they can, not only to foster this war, which is what they have been doing, but also to fund and foment all the protests that have been racking the Western world in support, hypothetical support of Hamas.